Time is now 5 p.m. It's May 17th. We now call the study session regarding fiscal year 2022-23 operating budget to order. Given the global COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being conducted both telephonically and in person. Members of the City Council and staff may be participating either in person or telephonically. The public is encouraged to join the meeting either online or by phone at the numbers printed on the agenda by attending at the Windmill Community Room at City Hall. This meeting is being recorded, and by participating, you are giving a permission to be televised. So today's study session item, it's regarding fiscal year 2022-23 operating budget. And we'll start with public comments. Okay, it is now time for public comments on study session item. There is a 5-minute maximum time limit. At this time, I'll call up speakers who have submitted a speaker card first. Then City Clerk Santana will ask callers on those joining on teleconference to speak up one at a time. I don't have a speaker card. Ms. Santana, can you check to see if any speakers online?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. There are actually no guests on the phone call right now. There's no members of the public joining us for this study session, and also no emails were submitted for public comment.
Thank you. So seeing none, we'll now move on to the staff presentation, and I'll turn over to City Manager Dan Fox.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. The study session that you had at your last meeting was on the draft capital improvement program. Tonight, we're going to have a study session on the operating budget for fiscal year 22-23. And I'm going to ask our Finance Director, Jason Jacobson, to go through the staff presentation.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening, members of the City Council, Mayor Pro Tem Andrew Chow. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with you guys to review the proposed operating budget for the upcoming fiscal year 2022-23. By way of review here, we have already on April 19th had the General Fund Special One-Time Funding Study Session where we allocated about $5.1 million in resources that were one-time savings in the General Fund to various projects. A couple of weeks ago, we had the study session for the 1-year and 5-year CIP program. And tonight is the operating budget review. And in a couple of weeks here, we will have budget adoption on June 7th. All right, so to kick us off here, I first want to just say we have a very positive outlook. It's an ambitious program we have, as you've already seen from the CIP and the one-time funding study sessions. We are anticipating a restoration of city revenues with a focus on key initiatives consistent with our long-term financial stability report and strategic plan. In addition to that, we've advanced deferred maintenance and capital improvements using the $5.1 million available due to the ARPA offset funds. For the general fund overall, in sum, we have an operational surplus of $566,132 currently programmed. Of note, it should be pointed out that revenues, when you remove transfers in, are up 8%, which is approximately $2 million. Transfers include the ARPA funding, which would be the second installment of about $3.4 million. So excluding that, revenues are up 8%. Total appropriations, when you exclude transfers out and one-time capital outlay, are up 4%. So it's a good story. It's a good position to be in after a severe economic sort of black swan event known as the pandemic and all of the impacts that we saw as a result. So with that, I'll dive into a little bit of an update. The previous meeting regarding the CIP, Council directed staff to add one project to the list for CIP programs for this coming year, and that project is the design and construction of Maple Hill Park Playground Restroom Replacement ADA upgrades. The total proposed budget for that project is $660,000, and all of that funding will come from the Park Development Fund. That brings our total park and facilities budget up to $3.4 million. and the total revised CIP program up to $9.36 million, with $2.17 million of that coming from the general fund, the majority funded by the one-time funding again from the ARPA offset. I should also note that the CIP was reviewed for consistency with the city's general plan at the May 10th Planning Commission meeting. Now for a time to review the revenue projected for next fiscal year. Property tax is estimated to increase 3.4%. That's due to a valuation increase of 4.4% for the 22-23 levy. Interesting that the city only receives 5 cents on the dollar for property tax. What's driving the increase? The change in CPI is going to be capped at 2% this next fiscal year. In addition to that, we have approximately $100,000 in increase due to the transfers of ownership among the properties for both single family and non-residential properties. Property tax in lieu is anticipated to increase 4.4%, as that's also driven by the valuation increase. Sales tax is going to look very positive this next fiscal year, but expected to kind of flatten out for the foreseeable future. 5.8 million is currently budgeted in that category. Transient Occupancy Tax, also known as TOT, has returned to pre-COVID levels this current fiscal year. We have budgeted $1 million. I should also note that we're already reaching $940,000 in TOT revenues through March. So we still have 3 months to go and we're almost hitting our target. So we may even hit the 1.3 million this fiscal year. So it's great to see that. In addition, service charges across the board are returning to pre-COVID levels. Building, engineering, planning, development related fees are up 15%. Facility rentals are almost over doubling at $759,000 total. A point of clarification, I did have a typo in the agenda report. The cell tower revenue has increased $10,000 from the current projected $180,000. So it will be $190,000 for next fiscal year. And that's due to CPI adjustments for the various lease agreements. Recreation programs are estimated to be increased by 28% to a total of $591,000 next fiscal year.
I have a question for you, and I don't know if it's for Mr. Fox or for you, Mr. Jacobson. Does the TOT for 22-23 include the new hotel that's being built on Brea Canyon?
No, sir.
Oh, wow. Good. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our departmental overview within the general fund. We always start off with city administration. Here we have the city clerk's office, city council, city attorney, and city manager's office. Overall, a slight decrease of 0.25%, mainly due to the reduction of special legal services related to the Tres Hermanos litigation. That amount is about $33,000. Next up is our personnel discussion. Now our ACM, Ryan McLean, will speak to the fiscal year 22-23 personnel initiatives created to address the current changes and trends affecting the human resources environment as it relates to retaining personnel, attracting new talent to the organization, and maintaining competitive wages in the marketplace, given record inflation over the last year.
So do you guys want us to hold our questions till the end and then ask all the questions at once? Is that what you want?
Whatever you prefer, I'm fine either way.
Okay, we can do that.
All right, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. So as you know, we had an opportunity to meet individually with each of the council members to discuss a new initiative, which we're calling the Employer of Choice. And this is a comprehensive plan that looks at our entire organizational culture, really to find the best way to provide the best service possible to the residents, our businesses, and then our internal customer service to make sure that we have what we need to provide that good service to those that need it from the city. This is an initiative that is consistent with the City Council's strategic plan, which includes a goal to create and sustain a high-performing organization. And the employer of choice, as we went into much greater detail in those individual meetings, really focuses on three things, and that is attracting and retaining the talent needed to provide excellent customer service, using innovation and development tools that put the organization in the best position to succeed, and then communicating openly and effectively, setting clear expectations and priorities. And it is a long-term aspirational idea, but we do have concrete and measurable initiatives that we'll be rolling out. One of them I will discuss in this presentation. And that is what we are calling the Human Capital Investment Program. And essentially what this is, it's a way to look at our personnel resources, just like we do a capital improvement program. And so we start with our people, and like we maintain our parks and facilities and public infrastructure, we need to invest in those that are charged with carrying out the policies, programs, and services that you have decided upon. And so this program, which is the first of its kind in the city's history, looks at a number of things, including organizational staffing and the structure of our personnel. We are going to essentially look at this as a specific plan for the long term as to our personnel needs, and make those investments and to ensure that we can provide the services necessary. So there are three items that I'll discuss as it relates to your budget discussion, which is what we're here for today. And those are, first, the human capital program investments. These are a combination of new positions and reclassifications that were identified by the leaders of your departments under the human capital investment program. The second is a cost of living adjustment, which is a standard discussion point in each of the annual budget reviews. And then finally, a benefit allotment adjustment. We'll start with the human capital program investments. These first set of items that you see on the screen here are recommended reclassifications. And these are not simply promotions. A reclassification is slightly different in that this is justified because the employee has demonstrated knowledge, skills, and abilities that meet the qualification of a new higher class. Essentially what we're seeing here are people that have shown an aptitude and demonstrated high performance and have the ability to complete more complex work at a higher level. And these recommendations reflect that. So as you'll see, there are 4 positions, 2 in the city clerk's office, 1 in Parks and Recreation, and 1 in Public Works. And the fully burdened expected cost for these recommendations for fiscal year 2022-23 is right about $25,000. The next phase of the human capital program investments in your recommended 2022-23 budget includes 3 new positions. And each of these positions focus on a more robust customer service foundation. All 3 of these positions provide direct frontline customer service to those that are in our community. So I'll give a little bit of information about each of the positions that are recommended, starting with the permit technician. And the permit technician is in the Community Development Department in Building and Safety and will provide service to customers at the building counter at City Hall, as well as the growing numbers of people that are using our virtual lobby, which is our online submittals. And really what this should do, it's going to double the permit technician resources that we have from 1 to 2. And that should help us improve our response times as it relates to responding to submittals on a building and safety project. The second recommended position is a new neighborhood improvement officer. This again increases our capacity to provide code enforcement services. That would bring our total number of officers from 2 to 3, and those 3 officers would be charged with making sure that the code compliance is in order in the over 18,000 parcels that Diamond Bar has. It also provides us an opportunity to have some Saturday coverage so that when the weekend comes, we have the ability to have some boots on the ground to address any code issues that come up. And then the third recommended new position is the accounting technician in the finance department. And this position will allow for what would be something that would be the first of its kind in the city's history, and that is a centralized cashiering function at City Hall. So that streamlines the cashiering function. When somebody comes in and needs to pay for something, they'll have a one-stop shop to do that. And second, it also allows us to meet best practices for cash handling so that we have a dedicated group of individuals that are charged with processing transactions. And that's a good thing when it comes to the auditing process. And so as you'll see on the screen, the fully burdened expected cost for the next fiscal year 2022-23 is about $250,000 for these three positions. Moving on from the Human Capital Investment Program recommendations, we have the cost of living adjustment. And this is something that is in the City Council's adopted personnel rules and regulations, which include a provision that at the time of the budget review, the city manager may request an annual cost of living adjustment, which is based on the consumer price index for urban wage earners and clerical workers in the Southern California area. And we use the period from March to March of the previous year. And you'll see on the screen, there's a historical perspective that shows going back to fiscal year 2011-12 up to today. You can see what the consumer price index was versus the COLA that was adopted as part of the budget. And if you go back to 2018-19, you'll see that the COLA is running about 32% behind the CPI, and there are a number of reasons for that, but it does provide some perspective as it relates to the next slide. So the recommendation that is included in the budget that has been introduced this evening is a cost of living adjustment of 8%. You'll see on the screen that the consumer price index for the last year is significantly higher than it has been. As we all know, there are a number of factors that are driving that, but we're really facing conditions we haven't faced in quite a while. And so that's the reason for the higher numbers that you see there. We are requesting as part of the budget an 8% cost of living adjustment, but it is split with 5% in July and then 3% in January. And this approach results in pretty significant savings than if the full amount was applied on July 1st. And so this cost of living adjustment, it's important to realize that this is something that is important to ensure that the compensation of employees remains in line with the council's personnel rules and regulations policy statement. And that states that the city's jobs are paid at the median when compared to market survey cities. So the total cost for the cost of living adjustment for a full 8.67 would be $605,000 and change. When applying an 8% cost of living adjustment split into a phased approach, you're looking at closer to $460,000. So there are some savings there. And then the third piece of the puzzle today is the benefit allotment increase. And this is something, again, that historically the City Council has included in the annual budget, a $50 adjustment for benefit employees and council members. This is something that helps everyone that's enrolled in the city's program to adjust to some of the benefit health cost changes, particularly coming after the COVID situation in which those premiums have increased significantly. And the cost for this recommendation is approximately $38,000. And I know that's a lot of information, but that wraps up my presentation. And if there are any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Ryan. That takes us right into our administrative and support budget, which includes the Human Resources and Risk Management Division, the Public Information Division, the Finance Department, Economic Development Division, and Information Systems Department. Total budget there is $4.1 million, slight increase of 6% due to various increases across the categories related to professional services, operating expenses related to computer maintenance and software applications. Highlights for the admin and support budget include $50,000 for resident satisfaction survey, $8,000 for translation services, $17,500 for contracted audiovisual services related to special events, $10,000 for new website design. The economic development budget includes $25,000 for Restaurant Week, $50,000 for economic development consulting services, and $12,000 for the Regional Chamber of Commerce. Our public safety budget includes law enforcement, animal control, fire protection, and volunteer patrol, in addition to fire protection services. And Emergency preparedness. The total budget is $8.2 million for fiscal year 22-23, a slight increase just in relation to the law enforcement contract. The law enforcement contract itself line item is $7.7 million. This includes a 1.45% increase plus a liability trust fund surcharge of 11% for the Sheriff's Department. It's also funding public safety also is contributed by the Law Enforcement Reserve Fund, one of our special funds, to the tune of $100,000 as a form of reimbursement to the general fund for suppression patrols and special assignments. Our crossing guard budget totals $230,000. This reflects a decrease of 2 guards due to the closure of Diamond Point Elementary. The previous vendor is currently out of business, so a new RFP is underway. Staff does anticipate bringing a new contract soon. And a possible budget adjustment prior to the June 7th meeting, so we may have a revision there to this line item. Animal control budget is expected to be a net cost of $384,200. This represents a decrease of $10,800, and staff is working with the IVHS Liaison Committee to get a better handle on the future contract costs and identify ways to mitigate those in the future. This brings us to our Community Development Department, which includes planning, building and safety, and neighborhood improvement. The total budget for community development is $2.3 million. The Park and Recreation budget includes park and rec programs, recreation, and the Diamond Bar Center. There is an 11% increase, largely due to the return of full operation and the related contracts and professional services and operating expenses related to this department. Some highlights include summer youth day camp, full park amenities, field allocations, contract classes, picnic reservations, concerts in the park, bingo, tiny tots, the windmill hunt, and May the 4th be with you. The focus this year is on participant and staff safety, as always. In addition, the Diamond Bar Center has seen increased costs commensurate with the increased activities and revenue related to that. The Public Works General Fund budget is $5.8 million. It includes the Road Maintenance Division, Administration, Civic Center, Engineering, Landscape Maintenance, and Park and Facilities Maintenance. Some highlights include the engineering budget, which includes a $50,000 line item for the SR 5760 congestion relief efforts, good movements line item for a congestion relief strategy along the 5760, as needed technical engineering support for the 5760 confluence project in the amount of $40,000. Traffic signal timing support for the 57 pavement replacement project, which is reimbursed by Caltrans in the amount of $50,000. Maintenance highlights include $215,000 for annual tree trimming, $265,000 for various sidewalk, curb, and gutter replacements, and $200,000 for residential street name sign replacements, phase 2. And that takes us to our special funds. Highlights include our OPEB fund, which is other post-employment benefits, which includes $40,000 to fund the annual required contribution per the city's reserve policy to offset future liabilities. The COVID-19 fund, as you'll recall, $6.8 million is anticipated to be received from the Treasury's ARPA program, state and local fiscal recovery funds. We have received the first half of that amount, and we anticipate receiving the second half shortly. This fund is where those revenues are deposited before they are transferred and recognized as revenue in the general fund. The 22-23 budget includes the transfer of the second half, $3.4 million, to the general fund to offset lost revenues. The landscape and lighting districts are a key special revenue fund for the city. The general fund contribution for fiscal year 22-23 is only $212,000, down from a high of $432,000 just a couple years ago. As you'll recall, much work has been done to reduce the operating deficits and reduce the general fund contribution to these funds while also maintaining the high level of services. Our debt service fund is where we house our payments for our refinance bonds. In June 2021, the city refinanced the 2002 lease revenue bonds for the Diamond Bar Center, generating a total savings anticipated to be $1.7 million through 2033. The annual savings is approximately $145,000 on any given year, and the debt service for this upcoming year is $716,200. That brings us to our internal service funds. These funds are where we house the internal administrative support budgets, where we essentially have one-time costs and ongoing items such as capital outlay and insurance premiums. The self-insurance fund is seeing an increase of about 19% for the premiums in this upcoming year. The total premiums are $512,600, and these include the city's general liability, property, crime, and pollution insurance premiums. The vehicle maintenance fund is receiving an annual contribution for depreciation and operating expenses in the amount of $160,650 from the general fund. This is per the city's reserve funding policy. This also includes revenue from the AQMD fund in the amount of $32,000 to assist with the purchase of 2 zero-emission vehicles to satisfy grant funding requirements related to the electric vehicle charging station grant. The Equipment Maintenance and Replacement Fund provides $855,800 for necessary hardware upgrades and replacements, of which $791,000, the majority, is resulting from the one-time funding from the general fund resources. Some highlights include citywide camera updates, network hardware replacement, Crestron audiovisual lighting project at City Hall, the design phase, and satellite phone replacements. The city's Building and Facility Maintenance Fund is receiving funding in the amount of $100,000 from the general fund per the reserve funding policy. This fund provides $235,000 for necessary facility improvements, such as replacement vinyl flooring at Diamond Bar Center this upcoming year, Civic Center exterior paint, engineered wood fiber for 3 playgrounds and a dog park. Those include Sycamore Park and Diamond Canyon Park. In addition to this, there's drinking fountain upgrades and ADA improvements at up to 4 locations pending an ongoing needs assessment by staff. And last, replacement tennis court windscreens at Reagan and Maple Hill Park. And this brings us to our final slide here, where we kind of get a view of all the fund types and the operational surplus and deficit for those. Overall, a very positive picture. You'll see some slight deficits in the special revenue funds. This is largely due to transfers out to the capital improvement fund using some fund balance reserves there. In addition, you have some use of reserves by the internal service funds, and those are using it likewise fund balance projected to be available at the end of this year. Operationally, the budget will be balanced. Use of revenues and resources, including fund balance, will be used to fund all appropriations as proposed to the council. And that brings us to questions.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions. So we'll start with, let's start this way. Councilmember Liu.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a question from Ryan. For the new positions that we are creating, I understand that it would be better to serve our residents, and that's great. And I was wondering, since we do quite a bit of contracts, would that offset some of the contracts that we need to contract out?
These positions will not reduce contract costs. These are positions that will be focusing on a lot of services that we're providing at our counters and out in the field. Those positions currently are not provided by contractors. And so these positions would be kind of frontline city employees. Now, as part of our human capital investment program. We are looking at in any future recommendations we make, we will be looking at how we can offset contract costs. That's something where if we can do it, we will look at it and make recommendations accordingly. It's really a matter of doing a cost benefit to determine if the contract model works better or if the internal personnel works better. There's examples of that in the past where we've brought services in-house where we were able to do that. These particular services that we'd be providing here are not something that are currently offered by contract, but we're not in a position to offer them in the most effective way because we simply don't have the personnel available to do them. And so this would allow us to expand that service in a way that we haven't been able to before.
As you had mentioned earlier, so this would this something be more like that there is a need, a void in that area, or is it enhancing the service that we have?
I think it's a matter of both. We have very limited staff, as we've discussed before. So I mentioned with the permit technician, we have one permit technician. As you can see in the slide, I think we were looking at almost a 16% increase in fees associated with building. That means there's an increase in the amount of volume that's coming through the building and safety counter. It's difficult to do when you have one city staff person that's handling that. Now, we do have some contract staff that are a part of our building department, and those wouldn't go away, but having this position allows us to reduce the turnaround time for a lot of those projects simply by doubling the volume of staff that we have. When it comes to the accounting technician, we don't have that position now. And given the limited capacity that we have with our existing staff, we don't have the ability to bring the cashiering function in-house because we simply don't have anyone that can absorb that. That's going to be an ongoing thing every single day. We have customers come in that need to process payments. We have to have somebody there. And then as it relates to the neighborhood improvement officer, that's kind of the same thing. We have 2 neighborhood improvement officers currently. Again, they have 18,000 some parcels to cover, and there's inherent limitations when it comes to that. And so by adding an extra neighborhood improvement officer, we have the ability to do that much more out in the field.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Is that all the questions for now?
That's all the question for now.
Okay, let me pass on to Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you. I have a couple questions also. So thinking about the whole idea of employer of choice, right? I'm just wondering if we put enough money in the education and training and employee tuition reimbursement. I mean, I see on the employee tuition reimbursement, we increased it from 1,500 to 3,000, which is, you know, obviously 100% increase. But, you know, in these days when, you know, universities and colleges and everything are so expensive, books are so expensive. I mean, is that really enough money to keep and attract the best employees?
That number is something that's been in our budget, and I believe it's in our personnel rules, but beyond looking just at the college, university expenses, that's funding that can be used for job training, specific classes that can enhance the performance of an employee. So you can look at something like a project management course, something of that nature. So those are, it goes beyond just the college tuition reimbursement program that we have in our personnel rules, and would include other items as well.
Well, my point is I don't think it's enough money. That's what I'm asking.
So I know that we have not spent all of the funding for the tuition reimbursement program, but when it comes to providing additional training and education as it relates to the workplace, I think that that's something that we would like to focus on more in the future as part of our program.
Well, do you think the employees even know that that's available to them? Maybe that's why we haven't, you know, fully expended all that category?
I think employees do. I know that we do process those on a fairly regular basis, but I also think it's a matter of demographics and where people are in their career and if they're in school or not. We have reinstated the travel budget. That's something that's a little bit different. That's more conference related. But again, my personal opinion is that there is some need to continue to work on and enhance the training and education that we have for the workplace as part of this program.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fox, this question's for you. So we had talked a couple of months ago about the medians that we have going up and down Diamond Bar Boulevard and how some of them looked really raggedy. And you had said that we had appropriated enough money to plant them, but not really to maintain them very well. And so we were going to look at putting more money in that this year. But I see the parkway vegetation is, basically the same amount of money. And I don't know if we changed our mind about that, or do you remember that conversation we had?
The landscape District 38, which maintains the medians, there is not sufficient funds to renovate those medians comprehensively. I think maybe what we were referring to is that staff has on an incremental basis been able to replace some plants based upon available funds and available resources, but we have not been able to develop and there's no funding proposed to do a comprehensive update for the medians, particularly along Diamond Bar Boulevard. If you remember, my recollection and my understanding is that those used to be turf, and at the time when we had the first drought, that the turf was removed because that median is not on recycled water, and bark was basically put down. So if there is an interest in doing that, it would be general fund money associated with that. As you know, District 38 operates in a deficit.
Right, I know that, but maybe that's something that, council might want to look at as they drive up and down the boulevard, because a lot of them are, very, very raggedy, and maybe that is a place where we'd want to spend some money. Wait, there's more. Oh, yeah. This is on the events that I know the mayor had spoken about, and I was also in favor of a Christmas tree lighting ceremony with the two high schools providing music in that. And I know it's not in the activities that we have that we're showing for next year. And we had talked a little bit about, where would we have this and what tree could we use? And I know somebody suggested we could even light up the windmill, and that would be kind of, different and maybe very Diamond Bar focused. So if we want to have money for some kind of, tree lighting or windmill lighting ceremony, then we need to add it to this list if there's another council member that agrees with me. Is that correct?
That would be correct. I believe Mayor Lowe may want to chime in on that as well. I know she is interested in that. If it is the consensus of the council, we could certainly add that. Our Parks and Rec Director, Ryan Wright, has been kind of doing some noodling on some of that. And one option that we've come up with, which I think is of interest to particularly the Diamond Bar Community Foundation, which might be able to help sponsor this type of an event, would be to decorate our windmill at the Walmart Center that we have. And so we have looked at a couple of options for that. We have not received any type of confirmation from the property owner if they would accommodate a special event. But if there is investing $25,000 in the Parks and Rec special event budget to accommodate such an event.
So you think it would take $25,000 to do some kind of event like that?
Our preliminary estimates that, and this is assuming that it's all city costs, not counting any type of sponsorship or participation by other organizations, about $10,000 would be directly for the decorations and lighting of the windmill, and about $15,000 for the special event, stage, tents, speaker system, PA system, or the if there is any entertainment. That, and of course, if we don't need that, or if it doesn't become that big of an event, we could always scale that back and not spend that resources. But at least at this point, we would recommend maybe including $25,000 for that type of an event.
Okay, well, that's certainly a little bit more than I was hoping we'd have to spend, but I know Mayor Lowe's in favor of it because she talked to me and I know she talked to you, and I'm in favor of it, and I don't know if there's any other council member that's in favor of that or not.
Thank you, Councilmember Lyons. I have that on one of my questions, was the tree lighting budget. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. So yes, I am definitely in favor of that. And I think that our staff is very creative. Maybe we can do, creatively do something that's very, very uniquely Diamond Bar in this regard.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's been brought up a few times in the past by our community members, and I'll certainly be supportive of that.
Sounds like there's 3 people then that would support that.
Yeah, I support that.
Okay, sounds like there's 4. All right. For Restaurant Week, I'd like to see if we can add a little bit more to that, to see if possibly we could do some kind of a more modern app on our phone. I don't know specifically what, but if we could add a little bit more money, into that, I think that would be a good idea. I'm probably jumping all over the place here, but and I want to make sure we have enough money appropriated to the Maple Hill Park. So we're going to completely redo the restrooms at Maple Hill.
The estimates that are included, $660,000, would include the design, construction for the replacement of the playground and the restroom building. And of course, those are estimates. Until we actually design it, we don't really truly know, and until we go out to bid, which will come before the council. If there is any additional appropriation that's needed, we would certainly present that for your consideration.
Okay, I think that's good. And I just want to make sure that, going forward, when we do park bathrooms, that, we consider that many men now are taking kids to parks without their wives or the kids' moms. And we need to really invest in those diaper decks and those steps and everything for the male side of the restroom as well. So I just want to make sure it's nice. If we're going to redo it, we should redo it, for 2022, not, 1980. Let's see here. I think that's it. Thank you.
I believe that's fair.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Ryan. Councilmember Tai.
Thank you. I'm a little disturbed that we're depending on hearing from ROIC relative to the tree lighting or the windmill lighting. When they chased the whole enchilada out of town, we couldn't get any response from them. And I think it was the only time I've ever been to the International Shopping Center convention in Las Vegas so that we could sit down with the vice president of ROIC and make our concerns clear. Clearly, that didn't result in the whole enchilada staying in town. But what type, if any, or what type of response are we getting from them? Are we getting crickets?
We're in the process of reaching out to them. I have not received a call back yet. I did leave a message earlier in the week, but we'll certainly follow up with the property manager. And that particular property manager typically is more responsive when it comes to center operations.
Okay. Okay. Then for Mr. Jacobson, the number for the sheriff is reflective of what they believe the increase will be. I think I saw 1.7. Okay, thank you very much. So I think it's important to understand too, if I heard you correctly, Mr. McLean, we've never exhausted the reimbursement fund for education.
I can't say for certain that sometime in the past it hasn't been.
Right.
I think in recent years, that's a correct statement.
Yeah, it's not an effort. I mean, it's not a concern. It's not
not
people
at
aren't
this
coming
time.
to us and we don't have 20 employees saying, oh boy, I'd go to school if only there was more money.
Thank you.
You know what? I'll just talk to her from now.
That's a
Thank
smart
you.
decision.
So I think it's really important to understand that as long as I've been on the council, I've been very proud that we're a contract city. We do things efficiently. And I would tell anybody that would listen, we are a lean and mean operating organization, but it's important as we look at this to understand we're not that mean and we really can't stay that lean. So when you're talking about one more neighborhood improvement, you're talking about taking the city for two people handling 18,000 parcels. That's 9,000 each. Now we're going to reduce it to only 6,000. So the same thing with and maybe Mr. Jacobson can weigh in on this on relative to the not only the cash handling, but your shop, how that another body's needed. I mean, we've been talking about that since before you got here. So I think it's very, very important to understand what I see there is very reasonable requests. Nobody wants to be a bloated organization, and I don't think we are, and I don't think we will be. So thanks very much for a very, very effective budget that you've presented to us.
Thank you. If I can go to Mayor Lowe on the phone.
Pro Tem, thanks for handling. My question, one of them was the tree lighting, so I addressed that earlier. I wanted to know whether or not the use of the facilities at the AQMD, which we are contemplating on returning to in June, are those fees reflected in the budget already?
Yes,
Yes, they are.
Okay, and then for Mr. Jacobson, I think you said that the revenues are going to be, we're expecting an increase of 8%. Did you say that that's anticipated, or is that what we've already are seeing as of the current fiscal year?
Thank you, Mayor Lowe. That is a little bit of both. So we are anticipating the organic revenues, through the various categories to increase compared to the revised budget, the current operating budget, overall 8%. But we are already tracking, and when we budget for those items, for example, sales tax, property tax, we are, seeing the trends real time. Revenues come in a little late for property tax, so we do rely on a consultant there. Sales tax, though, is already exceeding the current revised budget. TOT, as I mentioned, is already exceeding the current revised budget. Investment income, in addition, is also going to be picking up here for the next fiscal year as Fed funds rates increase. So we might hit a 2% target. So across the board, we're seeing current increases, but overall next year we anticipate a revised budget to new adopted budget increase of 8%.
With regard to the TOT taxes, I believe the question earlier was that your proposed amount does not include the opening or the construction of the new hotel. We don't know when that's going to be opening, but I note that you indicated that it's as proposed is a 40% increase over the previous year's budget. Does that seem aggressive, or is that realistic?
So where it's trending right now is we're likely going to hit the 1.3 million that we're proposing for next year. We're likely going to hit it this year. We did revise that budget upward from, I believe, 900,000 around the mid-year update in February. So the current revised budget is probably a little too low based on where we're going right now. And the next year's budget is essentially where we expect the actuals this year to come in at.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And then moving over to the facility rentals, and I see that you've indicated that that's an increase of close to 120%. Does this amount include any of the fee increases in the cost of the rentals, or is this simply a function of anticipated increased bookings?
I will defer to our Director of Parks and Rec, but I do believe that there is a slight increase there. But for facility rentals at Diamond Bar Center, the majority of that is not anticipated to be realized next fiscal year, 22-23. So although we are proposing those facility rentals to receive a rate increase effective July, that revenue is not projected in that budget. We will add that to the budget for the 23-24 fiscal year.
Okay, so the events that were previously canceled over the last 2 years, we expect to realize those rentals facility rentals in 22, 23 then,
Correct. He's nodding his head. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And then I would like to know, why is the gas tax transfer in? Why is there no change in that?
So that line item is there to offset costs for the neighborhood traffic management program. And I will defer to our Public Works Director, Dave Liu, if he has any additional information on why the gas tax transfer in is going to remain flat. Is there an
Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, if I answer the question, the transfer in amount remains steady in that as far as the number of typical projects that we take on with respect to working with the neighborhoods, it's generally about 1 or 2 neighborhoods at any given fiscal year. So there's really no need to look at any additional amount. And I'm trying to remember some other projects that we may be looking at for next fiscal year, but I think the neighborhood traffic management program is the big ticket item in that in the operating budget.
So the transfer in is a function of what we do, as opposed to something that, as opposed to regular like revenue that just comes in.
That's right.
Mr. Jacobson, on the actual fund for the gas tax, is that going to a reserve fund then if we don't spend it on capital improvement projects and until we do spend it?
Yes, correct. The revenue from gas tax overall, we have a separate special revenue fund to account for those funds. So if they aren't transferred into the CIP program or to the general fund to reimburse for those maintenance costs, they will be deposited in the special revenue fund.
And do you have an estimate
Okay, I get it.
do you have an estimate on what those amounts are based upon previous year? I think that's the mayor, if that's your question.
Yeah, that's my question, but I think I get why it's zero, because it goes into the fund and then you don't transfer it in until you need it. Right?
Correct. Yes, that is correct. So we have a fund in the special revenue fund category where funds are first deposited there, and then we budget for them to be transferred into either the CIP fund or the general fund as needed.
So you have a different fund that recognizes them as they're coming in, and that shows a different percentage of increase over the current fiscal year, right?
Correct. Yes. Yes, that amount does increase, and that is an amount we receive from the state as far as how much that.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then on your report where you talk about the AB 2766, the AQMD fund, my question is, what are the limitations of the use of that fund?
So the AQMD fund is a standard allotment. I believe it's based on population, and those funds are limited to the reduction in emissions and largely trips generated by staff.
So by buy is the only way we can use these funds is to buy zero emissions vehicles?
No, we use those funds for other items as well as the neighborhood traffic management program to relieve congestion. In addition, we've used those funds to purchase laptops to assist with telecommuting.
Okay, so it's actually quite broad then.
Correct.
The use of those funds. Okay. And then my next question is with regard to the self-insurance fund. And I noticed that under the self-insurance fund that we are seeing an increase of 19.9% for the upcoming budget. Why is that?
So we have 4 different insurance premiums that are housed in that fund. We have the liability insurance premium, which is increasing 26%. We have we don't have workers' compensation housed there. We house that in the general fund. We have property insurance, which is increasing 3%. And we have crime and pollution, which are both increasing 8%, which for those line items, they're rather small. So it's that 8% increase is about $400 to $500. If you have a question
Well, if it's self-insured, I guess my question is that, since we're a self-insured entity, I don't know how that works. I know when I make a claim with my insurance company, of course, they raise me the next year. They raise my rates the next year. So is that how it works with being self-insured? Is that what is contributing to the almost 20% increase in rates for next year?
Yes, so Madam Mayor, we are members of the California Joint Powers Insurance Authority, and we pool our risk with other members in the area. So those increases come from the JPIA.
Oh, I see. So it's not directly related. It's kind of like the liability trust fund with the sheriffs. We have to spread the risk, even though we're not the ones that are causing the risk.
Correct. Yes.
Well, that doesn't sound very good. Okay. Once again, you indicated at the beginning that we are looking at a 2.17 million transfer from the general fund, and that's for the CIP. I was under the impression that the expenses for the Maple Hill of $660,000 were coming from general fund, but it's actually that's just part of it, or is it coming from? I guess my question is the improvements for the Maple Hill Parks. Is that coming from a parks fund, or is that just coming from regular general fund money?
Sure. Let me clarify that a little bit. So the 2.7 is coming from the general fund to the CIP fund. The general fund is not providing funding directly for the Maple Hill fund or the Maple Hill CIP project, which the budget for which is $660,000. That funding source is coming into the CIP fund from the Park Development Fund. Now, those funds that exist in the Park Development Fund, as with many of our internal service funds and special revenue funds, that one is a fund that is reliant on the general fund for its revenues. So part of our policy, our reserve funding policy, is to at the end of the year fund those reserves with 40%, I believe, of any operational surplus that may exist at the end of the fiscal year, and that's the audited actuals we're speaking of there. So recently in January, Council took action to fund that reserve fund in the amount of approximately $740,000. So that funding source is mainly general fund, and that fund, which is classified here at City of Diamond Bar as a special revenue fund, is assigned to funding those facilities. So that's the nexus there for its transfer into the CIP fund to fund that playground redevelopment.
Okay, got it. Okay, great. And then you mentioned that the crossing guard services, we are seeing a reduction. And did the school district ever contact us about the closure of the Diamond Point Elementary School, insofar as would there be opportunities for the city to do some kind of joint use or use those facilities that are no longer being used as a school? Is that an opportunity for the city?
Mayor, my understanding, yes, the Pomona Unified School District did notify us about the closure of Diamond Point Elementary. It was probably over a year ago. This last year, they stopped. They moved all of the students to Golden Springs Elementary, if I remember correctly, and they were using that facility for their adult education and counseling programs and some other accessory office space for the school district. So the school district is still using that facility. It just does not house elementary school students. And that's why we were able to eliminate the crossing guard services at that location.
Okay, I guess where I'm going with that is that just over the last couple of years, actually starting, since the COVID restrictions have been eased, that community organizations, nonprofits that benefit our city have approached me and asked, well, does the city have any kind of meeting space or meeting rooms where we can work with kids or work with, whatever the population is that they service. And of course, I couldn't think of anything that our city has that, where the Leos group with their, 50, 60, 80, 100 kids can meet, or where even smaller groups can use as a meeting place. And insofar as, we have these facilities that are in our city, and I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to provide some kind of space through joint use agreements, not for so much for city functions, but for nonprofits that benefit the city. What do you think?
My initial thought would be that those groups probably would be best served if they contact the school district directly. I know that school districts typically rent out their multi-purpose rooms to church organizations on the weekends and other activities. So if they do have that opportunity, it probably would be best to work directly with those, not only Pomona, but the Walnut Valley Unified School District as well for facilities.
Okay, great. And so those are all my questions, and I really appreciate the thought and the care and the planning that all of your staff and department heads have put in to creating this proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do have a few questions as well, but if I get to it, I just want to make a quick comment. So we always talk about how budgets are a reflection of our values as a city. So I think this budget is something that we can be very proud of. We're making significant investments in our people, and we're making long-term investments in our infrastructure. And at the same time, we have some money set aside for our kids, for our children, and for our community to enjoy, hopefully, a tree lighting ceremony and some sort of Christmas lighting ceremony. So I think this is a budget, and we have a surplus. So I think this is something that we can all be very proud of. So thank you, staff, for all the work that you do. A couple questions. So one of the slides you mentioned that there's a 6% increase in sales tax. I'm just wondering, where is that coming from? Any particular sector that's doing better than others?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Chow. Largely, that increase is driven by fuel sales, in addition to hotel sales tax and retail, slightly contributed to by retail. But also the large category is the county pool, which is online sales tax being distributed to the city through the county. And it comes to the city of Diamond Bar based on our overall share of sales tax.
And I probably contributed to that quite a bit. Boxes show up every single day. One day if a llama shows up, a llama shows up. I don't even want to buy anymore. Also, there was a budget line item for $50,000 for economic consulting budget. Do you remember what that was?
For that, I'll defer to city manager.
At this point, we don't have anything specific in mind. We have used it for our consultant to help us do recruiting for retail establishments. We're kind of filled up right now until we get the specific plan underway. So essentially, it is kind of a placeholder. If something does come up, we'll be able to respond.
Okay, so we may not spend it, we'll just budget for it.
Correct.
Last common question. So I saw that we're increasing our monthly budget benefit allotment by $50 a month. Is that enough? Given that, healthcare costs have gone up significantly, is that enough?
I think it's fair to say that number does not cover the increases that we've seen over the last few years, but we're within a reasonable distance of where it is. And I can ask Amy to provide a little bit more context on the actual numbers, but it's fair to say that the $50 doesn't cover the average increases that we're seeing in general.
Evening, members of the City Council. Over the last 8 years, we've seen an increase of about $380 per month across, and that would be across all plans. So HMOs, PPOs, and that runs the range of employee to employee plus one and family coverage as well. And over that similar time frame, the city has provided $300 of an increase. So while it's not dollar for dollar, we are trying to keep pace with it. But as Assistant City Manager McLean mentioned, it's certainly not keeping pace, at that exact rate.
So what would be an appropriate amount to bring that up?
Well, I think, plan designs are different. You have employee only coverage, which, the monthly benefit allotment is certainly sufficient enough. But those that are providing family coverage, are paying out of pocket, several $100s a month. So again, we really run the range. And so when we look at averages, we're running pretty close. And so it has been kind of a historical increase, anywhere from $25 to $50. But certainly something that we could take a look at in the future, continue to monitor it. Part of the concern or the issue is that we belong to the CalPERS medical plan, and those rates don't come out till late July, early August, and we adopt our budget, sometime in June, effective July 1st. The CalPERS rates come out in August, they're effective January 1st. So we're running usually about 6 months behind in terms of when we approve any sort of increases to the benefit allotment to when the actual rates go into effect. So something that, we would be willing to do is see in August when the rates get published, we can again take a look at the competitiveness of the monthly benefit allotment that we offer compared to, the range of plans that are available.
I think that'd be appropriate. I want to, take care of our people. So if they're working hard, want to make sure that they at least have their health insurance mostly covered.
Okay.
So.
Yes, we certainly are happy to do that, and we can do that sometime in August, September. And if there's an appropriate adjustment or recommendation at that time, we can certainly bring it to you guys at mid-year.
That'll be great.
So to Mayor Pro Tem's question, what would be an appropriate amount? What you just said was over an 8-year period, it's averaged about 380, and we've kept pace at it at $300. So it would be more appropriate, instead of doing 50, to do 80, wouldn't it?
Keep up with the average.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, City Manager, any last minute questions? Councilmember Lyons?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We heard earlier that the company that's providing the crossing guards has gone out of business. So I just want to make sure that the crossing guards are still working. Some private company is still paying them. I mean, we still have coverage, right?
Yes, that is correct. And we are in the process of soliciting bids from new providers for next fiscal year. And was mentioned, we anticipate that it could be a slight increase over what we're currently proposing. But we should have a pretty good idea of what that number might be when we bring back the budget for final adoption on the 7th.
Okay, good. And then my other extra question was, the increase for the sheriff's contract was only 1.45%, which seems, small and of course wonderful. I just want to make sure that's no decrease in coverage for us. We're going to get the same coverage that we've always had. I'm looking at Mr. McLean, he's nodding yes.
Yes, there's no change in any of the sworn personnel that we have out on the street on patrol.
Okay, well, this is a surprise and this is good, so thank you.
Mayor Lowe, we can't see you, so do you have any last minute questions?
Mayor Lowe, you're muted.
How about, okay, there you go. Thanks. On public safety, I know that our city used to have a very robust volunteer patrol force. And I know that is the line budget item. Do we have enough money there to ensure that, and I know that they've kind of been on hiatus with the COVID. Do we have enough set aside there to encourage residents or citizens to volunteer for this, because they do serve a very, very useful function at a very nominal cost as compared to the sworn police officers of the LASD.
Mayor Lowe, yes, I believe we do have enough in the budget. We've had a little bit of a decline in participation, which makes sense given the COVID situation. We have not reduced the budget, and most of the expenses to administer the program are carried by the Sheriff's Department. We offer funding to show up and to also purchase some of their equipment, including jackets that they use. You've probably seen them wearing them out when they're on patrol. And so I believe the budget is enough to continue that program at its historic level.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Thank you. Last call for questions. Councilmember Tai, Councilmember Liu? No question. And City Manager Fox. Fox, so you want us to, what do you need from us?
I think, at least according to my notes, I think there was a request to for a tree lighting event to be included. And I think the recommendation was for $25,000 if that is to be added to the Parks and Recreation Department budget. I believe there was a request for increasing the Restaurant Week budget under Economic Development for some type of app application, or we would probably recommend adding $10,000 to the Restaurant Week budget, making it $35,000. And then sounds like there was an interest in relooking at the benefit allotment once the new rates come out from CalPERS for possible consideration or adjustment at mid-year. And I think we made note that when we get into the design phase for Maple Hill Park, we'll certainly make sure that the restrooms are designed appropriately, or certainly even look at the family, bathrooms that they have now, the family changing rooms type of style, or unisex bathrooms as well. So I think those were the changes that I noted.
One other thing, please.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. The line item for the Snowfest, does that include the craft fair that we had last year?
Yes, it does.
Super, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. So, City Manager Fox, so I think that's everything you need from us.
That is all we need. If that's your questions, we really appreciate all of your support, and we will plan on packaging this up. There probably will be a few little minor refinements as we fine tune the numbers a bit, but we'll make sure we identify all those for the June 7th meeting. We'll bring this all back for your adoption at that time. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. So the time is now 6:13. We'd like to adjourn the study session, and if you indulge me. Oh, I've always wanted to do that. Thank you. The time's now 6:30. I'd like to call the council meeting on May 17th, 2022 to order. GoToWebinar transcript of council meetings are available upon request after the council meeting. For real-time transcription, visit your Apple app or Google Play Store and download services such as Live Transcribe or Live Caption. Given the global COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being conducted both telephonically and in person. Members of the City Council and staff may be participating either in person or telephonically. The public is encouraged to join the meeting either online or by phone at the number printed on the agenda, which can be found on the city's website, or in person, Windmill Community Room at City Hall here. We have also allowed public comments to be submitted in advance to the city clerk. If any were received, they will be noted for the record when we get to the public comment period. Public seating at this point is limited and it's on a first come, first served basis. The meeting is being recorded, and by participating, you are giving a permission to be televised. This meeting will be broadcast every Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. and alternate Tuesdays at 8 p.m. and archived viewing on the city's website, diamondbarca.gov. At this point, we'd like to proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by invocation by Pastor Rob Bank from Landmark Church. So we can stand, and Councilmember Lou will lead us in the pledge. And Pastor Bank?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to serve you in this capacity, Lord, for the leadership team here. We just pray that you just guide their hands in wisdom and help them with the decisions that they need to make. And just pray just over this community, Lord, that you just help this leadership team to meet the needs of those in the community here. Lord, we pray that you guide and shape them to do so, and that you just build unity wherever possible, that within the team, the people serving, Lord, that you just build unity over the division. And not only that, locally, but also in our country, in our state, Lord, we pray that you just bring unity and help us to see not differences, but where we're alike, Lord, and just help us to focus and move in that direction with you. Lord, we just pray that you protect those serving and that they can continue to do so in a way that pleases you. And so we just thank you for this time, and we lift this up in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have first approval of agenda as presented. Were there any edits?
There are no changes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. So the agenda is approved as presented. And now move on to agenda number, item number 1, special presentation
Mayor Pro
certificates
Tem?
and proclamation.
Let me just take a roll call real quick.
I'm sorry.
Right?
Go ahead. Roll call, please.
Okay, Councilmember Lou,
Here?
Councilmember Lyons,
I'm here.
Councilmember Tai.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Chow,
Here.
and Mayor Lowe.
I'm here as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we have business of the month, and for this month, I'd like to welcome and recognize Sherwin Williams. I understand store manager Kevin Perez is here with us. Is Mr. Perez here? Do you mind coming up? Maybe we'll have you say a few words, but let me say some nice words about you first. Then we'll have you say a few words about your store. Thank you. So we are excited to recognize Sherwin Williams as our May Diamond Bar Business of the Month. Sherwin Williams Paint Store is known for offering exceptional quality paint supplies, and stains that help bring ideas to life. Founded in 1866, I didn't realize that. The company has spent the last 155 years creating a legacy of growth, creativity, and innovation to meet the needs of their growing global customer base. Specifically, I'd like to congratulate the Diamond Bar location on successful first year in business. I know we're first time recognize you, but you've been here for a while. Sherwin Williams is located at 237 South Diamond Bar Boulevard, Suite B, next to Sprouts, and it's open 7 days a week. For more information, you may visit their website at www.sherwinwilliams.com. Business of the Month video highlights also available for viewing on the city website. Do you know if we're playing the video right now or not? Okay. So thank you, Sherwin Williams, for choosing to do business in Diamond Bar. We really appreciate your business. And this is store manager Kevin Perez. If you can say a few words about your business, then we have a certificate for you and we'll take a quick photo.
Sure. We're very excited to be here. We're obviously been around for about a year now. We're actually coming up on our first year anniversary, which is May 24th. And we felt like we're really happy to be here, and we feel like we've been very welcomed by the city of Diamond Bar. As soon as we opened, I know some of you guys went by and we had a grand opening, and like, for example, you guys have been reaching out to us since the very beginning, trying to help us out, and we really appreciate it, and we're really excited to be part of the city, and we're looking forward to being here for a lot longer.
Good, thank you. We're so glad you're here. So if I can have my council join me in the front, we'll take a quick photo with your recognition. Thank you again, Mr. Perez, for being here. Appreciate it. Now we'll move on to item number 2 on the agenda, city manager reports and recommendations.
Mayor Pro Tem, no additional reports this evening.
Great, thank you. Item number 3, public comments. Public comments, the time reserved on each regular meeting agenda to provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the council on consent calendar items or other matters of interest not on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. If you'd like to speak on any of the public hearing or the council consideration items, we will call on you at the time when we consider those items later in the meeting. Although the City Council values your comments, pursuant to the Brown Act, members of the City Council or staff may only briefly respond to public comments if necessary, but no extended discussion and no action on such matters may take place. There is a 5-minute maximum time limit when addressing the City Council. At this time, I'll call up speakers who have submitted a speaker card first. The City Clerk Santana will ask callers joining the teleconference one at a time to give their name and if there is an agenda item that they wish to speak on before providing their comment. And so far, I have 1 speaker card. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak that haven't submitted a speaker card? No. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to call up Ms. Puchin Ho. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Puchin Ho from the Diamond Bar Library. So summer is approaching, and I have a message for all the teens who are looking for a fun and challenging summer. I would like to invite them to come help with various library projects at Diamond Bar Library and earn community service hours. Your duties will be including signing children up for a summer discovery program, giving out prizes, and assisting with the preparation of art activities and library displays. So please pick up an application form at Diamond Bar Library and turn it in by Wednesday, May 25th. We are looking for volunteers between ages 14 and 17. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else like to speak? Last call. Okay. City Clerk Santana, were there any calls or any public comments as emailed or any callers on the line?
Mayor Pro Tem, there were no emails submitted for public comment. And at this time, if any member of the public joining this meeting via teleconference would like to address the City Council, please select the raised hand icon in your GoToWebinar program. I will unmute callers on the line one at a time. You will know it is your turn to speak when I announce your name and you hear a recorded message state unmuted. And Mayor Pro Tem, there are no hands raised.
Thank you. So seeing none, we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, schedule of future events. City Manager Fox.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. On the schedule of events for the next couple of weeks, we have the Parks and Recreation Commission is scheduled to meet Thursday, May 19th at 6:30 p.m. here in the Windmill Community Room, which may be attended virtually or in person. There will be a bridal show at the Diamond Bar Center on Sunday, May 22nd from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Planning Commission is scheduled to meet next week on Tuesday, May 24th at 6:30 p.m. Again, here in the Windmill Community Room, which also may be attended virtually or in person. And our next City Council meeting will be Tuesday, June 7th at 6:30 p.m. And we are very excited to announce that we will be returning to the AQMD auditorium starting with that meeting. So We look forward to returning across the street. That concludes the events for the next 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks.
Great, thank you. Now we move on to agenda item number 5, consent calendar. Mr. Fox.
On the consent calendar this evening, you have the approval of the May 3rd study session and regular meeting minutes, ratification of the check register dated April 27th through May 10th, adoption of resolution 2022-23, approving the continued use of teleconferencing options pursuant to AB 361, and adoption of a proclamation declaring May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Month. And that concludes the consent calendar for this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Do I have any council members that like to pull an item for discussion, or if I can entertain a motion for approval?
I'd move approval of consent calendar.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilmember Tai for the motion and Councilmember Lyons for the second. Ms. Santana, can you take the roll?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Lou?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chow?
Yes.
Mayor Lo?
Yes.
Thank you. So now we're on item number 6, public hearing. Mr. Fox?
Good evening again. I'm going to ask our Associate Planner, May Nakajima, to do the staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Lowe and members of the City Council. This project consists of the following requests: a vesting tentative tract map for 7 homes, development review for the architecture and landscape design, a tree permit to remove 62 protected trees and replace them on site at a 3-to-1 ratio, and a conditional use permit to approve development on a site subject to a planned development overlay district, and allow modifications to the following development standards. It would be to increase the exposed retaining wall height limit from 6 feet to 17 feet, reduce the minimum front setback requirements for lots 4 and 5 from 20 feet to 14 feet, and reduce the minimum lot size for lots 1 and 3 from 10,000 square feet to approximately 8,000 square feet. The site is located at the southern terminus of Crooked Creek Drive, east of the 57 freeway and the Brea Canyon Flood Control Channel, and north of the city's southern boundary. The site is surrounded by single-family homes to the north, homes along Running Branch to the east, the Flood Control Channel, and homes along Castle Rock Road to the west, and undeveloped land within unincorporated LA County to the south. The site is about 12.9 acres of undeveloped land. The topography is a steep hillside terrain to the east and areas that are relatively flat valley to the west, where most of the development is to occur. And there's a steep drop to the channel. There is an overall elevation difference of about 190 feet. These are photos of the homes to the north of the site on Crooked Creek Drive. And the next few slides will provide a complete history of the project. In 2007, the City Council approved a 16-lot subdivision, which included a vesting tentative tract map, a zone change, a CUP, a variance for the wall heights, and a tree permit to remove 43 protected coast live oaks and 29 Southern California black walnuts. 11.5 acres of mixed coast live oak and walnut woodland would also have been impacted. This would have required 98,000 cubic yards of cut and 86,000 cubic yards of fill. So in 2014, the property was sold to the current owner, who hired a new team to complete and record the final map. And it was during this process that the team found a variety of technical deficiencies, and the improvement plans in the project expired in 2017. The team then began on a complete redesign of the project. In 2018, the applicant proposed a map with 12 residential lots. This design had a pair of tiered retaining walls on the channel side with wall heights at 12.5 feet and 15.5 feet. On the hillside, 5 tiers of 20-foot high retaining walls were proposed, which would have resulted in 100 vertical feet of exposed wall surfaces. This would have required 90,000 cubic yards of cut and 52,000 cubic yards of fill. During this time, the developer held 2 community meetings in 2018 and 2019. Various topics were raised, such as concerns with the wall heights, grading, biological resources, etc. Responses to each of those comments are outlined in the staff report. The revised project presented today was designed in response to the feedback received by the community. So in 2019, the number of lots were further reduced from 12 to 11. 5 tiered retaining walls on the channel side were reduced to 4 feet each. On the hillside, the lineal footage of the 5 tiers of walls were reduced, each at 15 feet. Additionally, split level pads were introduced to reduce grading impact. The total grading was reduced to 35,000 cubic yards of cut and 13,000 cubic yards of fill. So after receiving community and staff feedback, the applicant made more revisions, which is the result of this current proposal of a 7 residential lot subdivision. There is 1 lot at the end of the cul-de-sac for a trailhead for future connection to the LA County Shabaram Trail, and 1 10.4 acre lot on the east to be retained as preserved open space. The trailhead and open space will be owned and maintained by the future HOA. The existing Crooked Creek Drive would be extended and dedicated to the city as a public street. As you can see, the road curves to follow the contours of the hillside, reducing the retaining wall heights and to avoid potential impacts to native habitat and trees. On the east side of the new street, 1 retaining wall with varying heights is proposed, starting at 4 feet. It increases up to 17 feet, then back down to 5 feet by the end of the cul-de-sac. And on the channel side, a pair of Verdura walls are proposed at 8 feet and 10 feet. Lastly, the overall grading was reduced to 14,500 cubic yards of cut and 19,500 cubic yards of fill. So here's an example of a fully landscaped Verdura wall. Verdura walls are interlocking, stackable, and plantable crib wall. In addition to the landscaping inside the walls, top of walls will be planted with vines for further screening. This cross section shows how the split level building pads gives the appearance of a 2-story home from the street, but it's actually 3 stories. So the homes were designed in a Tuscan or Italianate inspired theme with 3 floor plans ranging from about 3,800 to 4,800 square feet. 5 of the 7 homes will include attached accessory dwelling units or ADUs. Each of the 3 styles have 2 different color schemes and reverse layouts to provide variation and diversity to the elevations. There's articulation of facades, use of different types of building materials, colors, and various design accents to further enhance the architecture. Native trees such as coast live oak and Southern California black walnut will be used as open space plantings and within the project to tie in with the surroundings. A row of Bradford pear and fruitless olive trees will also be planted along the rear yards of the lots to reduce the visual impact of the development to the adjacent home across the flood control channel. In addition, the developer will be required to pay $270,319 in park fees for the project. The site is located within LA County Fire Department's very high fire hazard severity zone, which means, among other things, that the landscaping must comply with their fuel modification requirements. The applicant received a preliminary approval from the fire department in 2021 of not only the fuel mod plans, but also the landscape plans. A tree permit is required to remove protected trees, including 58 Southern California black walnuts and 4 coast live oaks. Replacement trees will be planted on the site and within the open space lot with 201 black walnuts, which is 27 more than the minimum 3-to-1 ratio, and 12 coast live oaks. A protected tree replacement plan will be required prior to the issuance of a grading permit. Homes on lots 1 and 2 were carefully designed to minimize privacy impacts to the existing homes on Crooked Creek. The home on lot 1 will be 30 feet away from the existing home and will not have views into their rear yard. The pad of lot 2 is going to be 10 feet lower than the adjacent home and will maintain a 35-foot separation. Additionally, there are existing mature trees that provide a dense buffer. This is a rendering of a view from Castle Rock Road, looking towards the channel. As mentioned earlier, a row of trees will be planted along the rear yards of the new lots to not only reduce the visual impacts, but to maintain privacy. A landscape easement in these rear yards will ensure future homeowners will not remove these trees. The city prepared an initial study and mitigated negative declaration, or MND, for the project. A notice was mailed to public agencies and to those who attended the community meetings. The ISMND was circulated for a total of 40 days. The city received comments from 7 agencies or groups, and responses to each of those comments were prepared and posted on the city's website as a response to comments document. And at this time, I would like to hand over the presentation to Dr. Daryl Kutnick to go over the comments received from California Department of Fish and Wildlife, to go over them in detail. Daryl is the biologist for ESA and the city's environmental consultant that prepared the environmental document.
Good evening. My name is Daryl Kutnick. I'm with the environmental company, Environmental Science Associates. We were hired by the city to prepare the environmental document and to update the information regarding to biological resources. So in particular, the comment letters from the CDFW, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, addressed a number of issues. They made some recommendations about adding or modifying the mitigation measures that we'd already included in the mitigated negative declaration. So during the review of the comment letters and the responses for the city, that the city had decided that to modify the mitigation measures on several of them, or adopt some additional mitigation measures as recommended by CDFW. The next issue, there was one primary issue, next slide, was the issue about the trees. Since the hillsides there have quite a few trees, there's over 400 trees on the property, mostly walnuts, but also a sizable number of coast live oak trees. So the tree impacts were minimized because of the design of the subdivision, that they've concentrated development into disturbed areas. And none of these areas that were previously disturbed or in the coast live oak woodland, they're considered sensitive communities. So no sensitive communities would be impacted by the project and the removal of the trees. The sensitive communities are the walnuts. There's walnut woodlands on the properties. About 1/2 of the 12.9 acres in the northern portion is walnut woodland, which is a sensitive community recognized by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And there is, at the moment, it's considered 1/10 of an acre, where the fuel modification of the current design would go into the walnut woodland. However, that 0.1 acre of walnut woodland is already within the fuel modification of the existing residents on Crooked Creek. So it's actually not a new impact, but it is an impact that if the project were to be looked at alone, that it would be impacting 0.1 acre of sensitive community. And in that area, that the only impacts would be to trimming the trees. Normally, this is what they call the thinning zone, or zone C, which the fire department typically requires to have the trees limbed up from the ground up to a minimum of 18 inches from the ground. Next slide. But there are a number of trees, and that was one of the comments that the city received from CDFW. And there are, as they said, I forget, 58 trees, walnut trees, and the oaks are both covered by the city's ordinance for protection of the native trees within the city's jurisdiction. So they will be mitigated on site with the replacement of 3:1 as is required by the city's ordinance. So compliance with the city's ordinance and the mitigation measures would have no significant impacts to the biological resources on this project. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Seeing none, thank you.
Yeah. And I'll just continue the presentation.
Please, thank you.
At the April 26th Planning Commission meeting, 8 residents were opposed to the project, including 3 that alleged that the city did not address comments received from CDFW. No comments were received regarding the site plan, design, aesthetics, visual impacts, grading, or architecture. So by a 4-1 vote, the commission recommended that the city council adopt the MND and approve the project. Therefore, staff is recommending that the city council adopt the 2 resolutions approving the project and associated environmental documents. This concludes my presentation, and staff is available for any questions, along with Michael Houlihan with ESA, who's been our project manager, Dr. Daryl Kutnick, who's the biologist, the applicant, and we also have Deputy Robert Walton online for any questions regarding LA County fire requirements.
Thank you for your presentation. So should we take public comments first before council asks questions? Okay. If there are any members of the public that would like to make a public comment regarding this agenda item, please come up. Seeing none. Ms. Santana, can you check the phone to see if anyone on the phone that would like to make a comment about this agenda item?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Chow. There were also no emails submitted for this item. And if any member of the public joining this teleconference would like to provide a comment on item 6.1, please click the raised hand icon in the GoToWebinar program. And there are no hands raised.
Last chance. Sir, yes. Please come up to the podium, identify yourself, and thank you.
I'm Gregory Shockley. I live at 3711 Crooked Creek Drive, Diamond Bar, California, 3 houses away from this site. And, you know, this isn't the first time we've been here. I appreciate all the work that everybody's done. I know a lot of effort has gone into this project. However, we have, what was it, 2 years ago? We had we spent a great deal of time developing a planning guidelines for the city. And basically you've thrown almost all of them out the window in order to accomplish this. So what was the point of that exercise if we're not going to follow it? You guys are the guys that are, you know, that are supposed to be putting this stuff together. The owner of the property, the current owner of the property, I don't know what happened to the last 2 or 3, okay, knew what they were buying before they bought it. They knew about our planning codes. And so why can't they build something that fits within that? What's so difficult about that? The only thing I can come up with is finances. Okay. So basically what it is you guys are saying that as long as you, the city, gets the money, you'll let them do anything they want. Is that really what we want to put out there? You know, it's one thing to go for 2 or 3 different things, retaining walls, trees permits, all this other stuff. Why did we bother to have a planning code put together if we're not going to follow it? Can the piece of property not be developed within the guidelines of the planning code? I don't know. I think it probably could be, but it would look a lot different. The other thing that I have to say is, you know, I moved to Diamond Bar before it was a city, long before it was a city. I'm probably the oldest resident in this room, okay? We moved here when I was in 2nd grade. And we became a city so that we would have control over our own destiny. Well, I hate to say it, but what good does this project do to the people that currently live in that neighborhood on Crooked Creek Drive? I don't see that there's any benefit to any of us. For prospective new home buyers, they're not here yet. They're not the people that you're representing. You're representing us. And I don't feel that you're doing a very good job at it. You know, I'm not saying the piece of property can't be developed. I think it needs to be designed within the guidelines. And if they can't make money doing it, so be it. That's where I stand. So.
Thank you so much for your comments. Anyone else? Sir, do you want to make a public comment? Okay, please come up, and if you can identify yourself, thank you.
My name is Shi Junyan, living in 3723 Crooked Creek Drive, the house next to the development. I know these, the planning department has followed the CEQA guideline. It's submitted to different agencies, but one of the party that submitted is Sierra Club. And from last planning commissioning, it was said that they has addressed a comment, but there was a representative here from Sierra Club that has questioned they address not enough. They address comment, but not to a standard that meets Fish and Wildlife standard. But since city is the lead agency, city has the right to say, we don't care about what Fish and Wildlife say, we just adopt it, we just accept it. I think that is not very good, very good rule for city as a lead agency that cares about development over the environmental impact. And that's the first one. Comment. Second comment is, this is a big site for 7 houses, but and this is developed under low impact residence. But the guideline from the city ordinance said that one needs to require 10,000 square feet of lot in order to develop. How come city set a rule that city violate its own rule and allow this lot to be reduced to 8,000 something square foot for 5 houses, and a setback needs to be 20 foot front setback? How come city will allow this to be reduced to 13, 14 feet? We don't understand this. If a city has a rule for development, the development should follow the guideline city set. So we don't know what's going on. So I think this development design is not complete. Follow the sequence guideline. It's not complete to follow city's ordinance. That's our concern. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'd like to close public comments at this time and bring it back to council deliberation. I'm going to call on each council member. And if you have any questions, please feel free. I'll start with Councilmember Tai.
You know, I should have asked him when he was up there, Dr. Kutnick. Is it, in your opinion, your professional opinion, the habit of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to add to the requirements, to point things out, no matter what you've done? The difference of spelling something different than we're actually spelling it, when it seems to me in the presentation I had from our staff that the builder has bent over backwards. I think I made a note here that they have responded to every concern of residents. They're replacing more trees than are required. That's a long-winded way to ask the question. Does the California Department of Fish and Wildlife just weigh in for the sake of weighing in? Do you ever get one back that says, "Well, you've done a great job"?
No, I've not actually seen a letter from CDFW that says that they've done a great job. Yeah, over the last, say, 3 to 4 years, that the CDFW's comment letters have been very detailed. The kind of letters that was received on this project is the typical kind that we've been seeing recently. Both agencies, they have a charge for the people of the state of California, and that's what they typically do. So they don't often have the exact information available to them as those consultants that are doing the survey on the site itself. So in our responses to the comments received from them, we tried to address those issues where if they had that additional information, their comments would be slightly different.
Thank you.
Is that it? Oh, thank you. Councilmember Lyons?
Thank you. I also had a question for you, so if you wouldn't mind coming back up. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm not familiar with the term a sensitive community of trees. What is that?
Sensitive community of trees. Well, the issues are that there's individual species and species combined together in an ecology that they make up a community. So the current terminology that CDFW uses is to identify those communities by the most prominent or dominant plant in that community. So where there's a term for a community called walnut woodland, then the walnut would be the one that's the most dominant species in there. CDFW has followed the NatureServe, which is a national program where they've identified certain parameters of communities based on the number of occurrences in geography, number of populations of those habitats, and they rank them from a series of 1 to 5, where 5 being very common, 4 being intact, and anything that gets ranked in 1 through 3 is considered a sensitive plant community. And so these are communities that are identified by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and that all of the CEQA documents that are prepared under the state law comply with that and use the ranking systems that the CDFW uses.
Okay. And then also, in your opinion, you believe all the concerns have been addressed and that research was thorough and corners were not cut. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's, my opinion, that's not the case.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm really glad that the project's been downsized, several times and is now at 7 units. And I've had 2 in-person meetings on this to look at the plans and look at the, the tree plans and the house plans and the neighborhood plans and all of that. And I'm really glad that, it's been redesigned several times based on feedback. And I'm really glad they're using the Verdura walls that are going to really soften, the look of the cement. So I think that's great. And I'm really glad they saved a lot for the trailhead, because we know that, being outdoors and trails, very important to people in Diamond Bar, and that being able to use that Shabarm Trail eventually, easily is going to be nice too. So I have no other questions, and I think that, I can understand everybody wanting nothing there, but knowing it's private property and we're going to get something there, I think it's a good project.
Thank you, Councilmember Lyons. Councilmember Liu?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Earlier, they had mentioned that we replaced the tree 3-to-1 and 3-to-1 ratio, 1-to-3. Can you elaborate what that means?
Yes, so for every tree that they remove, they would have to replant 3 of the same species.
Same species, it is in the same area, or is it spread out?
It's in the open space. It's spread out in the open space lot, which would be the preserved open space.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Mayor Lowe?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Let me just follow up with the tree question that Councilmember Liu just asked. I looked at the map of how the tree planting diagram, and it's 3-to-1. So we're adding a lot of trees. Is that too many trees to put into that open space? And if it's so, and all these trees as they're growing up, would they cause a fire hazard, honestly?
Anybody want to answer that?
Yes, so the mitigation trees are going to be spread out in the open space area and within the landscape area. The mitigation trees will be 24-inch box size for Coast Live oaks and 5 gallons in smaller seedlings for the replacement walnuts so that they survive better. Additionally, we submitted, or the applicant submitted, this fuel modification plan as well as the landscape plan to the LA County Fire Department and received preliminary approval based on their judgment of the canopy spread, chemical composition, the location, and the zones that they're in.
So they don't think that as these trees are maturing, say in 10, 15, 25, 40 years, that they will not become a problem at some point.
Well, they will be required to maintain existing and new fuel modification, which would be the trimming of trees.
I see. Okay. So then the whole entire open space becomes a fuel modification. It would be under fuel modification jurisdiction under the fire department. Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
May, would you like me to answer? This is Robert Walton with LA County Fire Department, fuel modification.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So this is the preliminary phase of the fuel modification plan for this project, and it's not a final approval, but based on what we're seeing so far with the tree placements and the tree species, it doesn't seem that it will become a hazard. These tree species are not known to be what we would call target species. They're kind of ideal for planting slopes. So moving forward, what's going to happen is they'll propose their final landscaping, and as long as there's no understory proposed, so other large shrubs, ground covers, grasses, etc., this should be fine and will satisfy our fuel modification requirements. Also, it is my understanding that this project is in an already disturbed area, and so we will be allowed to go in and weed whip any annual grasses or annual plants to abate that annual hazard. So I hope that answers
And that
your
applies
question.
to the. Yes, it does. It does, and it's very positive that you that's your opinion. And so the ability to go in and note anything that's growing later on, that applies not just to the current fuel modification area, but for the entire project. Is that correct?
Everything that is within the fuel modification zones or brush clearance zones of the existing structures. That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Then let me just go back to the trees one more time. In the CCNRs, that I believe that there's wording in there that that the owner has to maintain the trees for 3 years to ensure that they not only survive but they grow. Is that sufficient time to ensure that the trees don't die once they're planted in there? And does that differ with respect to the almost all the mitigation trees are in the open space rather than in individual lots? Is the 3 years sufficient? And then my second question is, who has the burden of ensuring that these trees are thriving and not dying?
So the applicant will be required to provide a protected tree replacement plan that would outline survival methodology, planting, and they'll be on the hook to maintain those for at least 3 years. The HOA or the future HOA actually would then be responsible for maintaining it in the long run.
Is 3 years sufficient based upon your knowledge of tree practices?
Can I defer to Dr. Daryl Kutnick?
Yes, Mayor. The trees for 3 years should be sufficient because typically what they need to do is to be able to be demonstrated that they can survive a minimum of 1 year, preferably 2 years without the assistance of water. But there actually is also a natural attrition of trees. There's actually a number of dead trees that are already on the property within the area. But the issue is that these trees will be able to survive once they get established and can demonstrate that they can survive without supplemental irrigation, except for those that would be planted within the what they call the Zone A of the fuel mod, the wet zone. And then also you are asking about fire hazard, that as the fire representative mentioned, is that oak trees are actually well adopted for fire. They have a very thick bark in order to survive. And then when they're planted in the density that they will likely be within the, at least within the oak woodland habitat, that this has a tendency to smother any fire that might go into that area because of the canopy. It is a closed canopy and chokes off the oxygen that would promote a fire.
Do you think that in our drought conditions that these trees are that there might be too many trees?
No, because they're being planted in a few areas where there are currently no trees at all. And then there are a number of tree areas within there that would be suitable for planting to keep the density of the trees at about the same consistency as occurs there now.
Okay, great, thank you. And my next set of questions is regarding the MND. Does it comply with all of the legal requirements of CEQA as it's being presented today?
Can I refer that to actually Michael Houlihan?
Good evening, Mike Houlihan with ESA. I manage the preparation of the environmental document and the process. The MND was prepared in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. It went through the preparation of a draft document, went out for public review. The required public review period is 30 days. It went out actually for 40 days, so exceeding that limit. We received comments. We provided responses to those comments and provided those available to the public to review. And then we went to the Planning Commission and now to the City Council. So that's a typical process, and it is in conformance with the CEQA guidelines.
Okay, very good. And then with respect to the contractor, the agreement, is there an indemnity clause indemnifying the city if there are further issues that arise with respect to the legality of the CEQA documents?
Yes, Mayor Lowe, this is Greg Goodman, Community Development Director, and good evening, members of the City Council. Yes, there's a standard condition of approval indemnifying the city from any legal action on the decision to approve the project. So should any challenge to either the entitlement or to the environmental determination, the city would be, the applicant would be required to cover the legal expenses incurred by the city.
Great, thank you. And then with respect to Lot A, when does the Lot A become the city's responsibility? And then a follow-up question, I'll tell you in advance, is are we back into a lighting district situation?
Lot A is the trailhead. The trailhead lot would be the HOA's responsibility until Los Angeles County proceeds with its master plan implementation to improve the Shabaram Trail easement. And at that point, the there would be a path connecting the trailhead to the trail easement. And it would not be until that point in time that the city accepts the offer of dedication.
Would the trailhead would the trailhead then become the city's responsibility to maintain and to clean and to ensure that it's properly kept up at that point, or is that how it works?
It would be dedicated to the city, yes.
Okay, and then access to the trailhead. Then are there easements that are necessary for the general public to access the trailhead to use the trails? And are those easements in place in this developmental document?
I can't say if the public has legal access to the trail, but the county does have a recorded trail easement along the physical delineation that you can see if you observe from an aerial view. So that easement is in favor of Los Angeles County, and it is recorded.
So if once the county finishes the trails and the easement and the trailhead is done, can anyone go over to Crooked Creek Drive, because it's a public street now, park their car and start hiking by entering the trails through that trailhead?
Yes, they would. That's correct. It's a public street.
Okay. And then is there, then my other question was respect to lighting districts. Are we looking at a lighting district situation here or in the near future or in the future?
A homeowners association is proposed to govern and maintain the property. So that would be the the covenant that governs the ongoing maintenance and delegation of responsibility to the homeowners association.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Government. Those are all my questions, and just my comments about this development and the amount of work and the designs and each design phase. The developers have reached out to the public and taken their comments and came back with a redesign. Reached out, came back with a redesign, and the design that we are looking at now with only 7 homes. I think it looks really very, very nice. I went to the location last week, and I was really struck by the beauty of that parcel of land. Really, it was breathtaking, and just just the natural contours of the land and how it backed into just more open space. It was very, very beautiful. I think part of our job here on the City Council is that we have to balance the reasonable use of private property with, with the balance what an owner can reasonably use and enjoy of their private property with whatever is environmentally in place. And I think that that this final design, as they have proposed, really seeks to do that. Just the way that the houses have been so much reduced in numbers, how they kind of contour and back into the wash so that it doesn't detract from the natural beauty of the land. And yes, we're giving some variances with respect to the setbacks, but because of where the location is, it shouldn't be what's the word? It shouldn't stick out that it's violates the aesthetics of of the whole project. And it seems to me that they've taken a lot of care to be as environmentally sensitive as possible. So those are my comments. I think it's a very, very good looking project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for your comments and questions. So I have a few comments. I've actually been tracking this project since when the last time we came on, and I attended one of the community meetings back in, I think, 2018 or 19. So I know the developer, the applicant, has taken great care in listening to what our community is asking for. And I remember at the time was a little, I think it was 11 parcels that were suggested at the time back in 2018 or 19. So I was glad to see that it's down to 7. And as you know, same thing as Mayor Lowe, I did go out and look at the parcel myself just to get a kind of firsthand view of what that looks like, potentially will look like. And I have to say, I'm kind of looking forward to that place getting cleaned up and, you know, having actual access to a trailhead for the public. But a couple questions. So along the line of HOA, so I know that, I mean, realistically speaking, there's 7 houses. So that's 14 adults. So we're going to form an HOA. Is everyone going to sit on the board of the HOA? And, you know, at some point, someone's going to move out and maybe some of them will have it for rental. So how realistic it is to maintain HOA. So again, we're not back in the same situation as District 41 and 39 where we have to step in and do the work.
There, in the conditions of approval, we did add a condition that's going to be on packet page 170, and that's a condition of approval number 9, Roman numeral 11. That condition requires that the CCNRs identify the city as a third-party beneficiary for the purposes of enforcing the CCNRs. So should there be any violation of the conditions of approval or the city's property maintenance standards, the city would actually be able to go in, enforce the CCNRs, do any abatement as warranted, and then lien the property owners.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's the concern I have for kind of long term. So I think that's all the comments we have. Any other questions from council members? Did you ask your question?
Yes, I have.
So with that, we make one motion or 2 separate motions, or how do you want to proceed?
I would recommend 2 motions, taking item B and C separately.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2022-24?
I will so adopt that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so Councilmember Lyons with the motion and Councilmember Liu with the second. Ms. Santana, if you can take the roll, please.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Liu?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chow?
Yes.
Mayor Lowe?
Yes.
Great, so item B, approved 5-0. Now item C, adoption of resolution number 2022-25. Do I have a motion? I'll make the motion to adopt resolution number 2022-25. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Liu seconds. Ms. Santana, can you take the roll?
Councilmember Liu?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chow?
Yes.
Mayor Lowe?
Yes.
Great. Resolution passed 5-0. So now we're moving on to item 6.2, resolution levying assessment on landscape district 38. Mr. Fox.
Good evening again. Our Public Works Manager, Hal Ghaffari, will make a brief presentation. No, you can participate in this one.
Great. Thank you, Manager Fox. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor, members of the City Council, good evening. This is our third and final step for our annual routine process to levy assessment on Landscape Assessment District number 38 for the fiscal year 2022-23. Next, please. All 18,448 parcels in the city contribute $15 a year to this district for the city to provide landscaping services for medians, parkways, and turf areas along major arterials as shown in the map. Based on the engineer's report, that assessment collected along with almost $157,000 from the city's general fund and $17,600 of fund balance from the current fiscal year cost in the amount of $452,000 in the coming fiscal year of 2023. Next, please. Recommendation on this item. Receive presentation, open public hearing to receive testimony, close the public hearing, and B, adopt resolution number 2022-26 and collect assessment for to levy and collect assessment for landscape assessment district number 38 for fiscal year 22-23. This was my presentation on this public hearing item tonight. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to open it for public comment on item 6.2. If there are members of the public in the room like to make a public comment, please come forward. Seeing none, Ms. Santana, anyone on the phone?
Mayor Pro Tem Chow, no emails were submitted for public comment for this item. And if anyone joining us via teleconference would like to provide a public comment, please click on the raised hand icon in your GoToWebinar program. Mayor Pro Tem, there are no hands raised.
Okay, seeing none, I'd like to close public hearing at this time and we'll entertain any questions from the council.
I have a question for, I guess, Mr. Fox. We're upside down on this district, this citywide district. What, if anything, can we do going forward? Would that take a Prop 218 action?
Yes, it would take a Prop 218 ballot effort that we just went through. And in this case, it would be the entire city. Again, it's a majority protest vote. So, but it would cover every parcel in the city.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lyons, any question?
No, no question.
Thank you. Councilmember Liu, questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Mayor Lowe on the phone, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no questions, if I can get a motion for adopt resolution number 2022-26.
I'll make that motion.
Councilmember Tai makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Lyons, Ms. Santana, if you can take the roll, please.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Liu?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chow?
Yes.
Mayor Lowe?
Yes.
Thank you. So resolution 2022-26 passed 5-0. Now move on to item number 6.3, resolution levying assessment on landscape assessment district number 41.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to recuse myself.
You are recused. Thank you. If we can receive a presentation, thank you.
Now, this is also our third and final step for our annual routine process to levy assessment on landscape assessment district number 41-2021 for fiscal year 22-23. Next, please. There are 554 parcels in this district, which is located on the southeast side of the city. The maintenance work mainly include slope and brush areas with small slivers of turf areas. Based on the engineer's report for fiscal year 22-23, with a maximum of 3% increase over the increase to the current fiscal year's numbers, the proposed annual assessments are going to be $540.98 per parcel for single-family houses and $497.71 per parcel for condominiums, with a total assessment amount of $293,471. This total assessment, along with with about $11,000 of general fund contribution from the city for the general benefit aspect of the district, are proposed to pay for the $304,557 of the district cost for the coming fiscal year. Next, please. Recommendation A, receive presentation, open public hearing, to receive testimony, close the public hearing, and B, adopt resolution number 2022-27 to levy and collect assessment for landscape assessment district number 41-2021 for fiscal year 22-23. And that concludes my presentation for tonight's public hearing on this item. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hal, for your presentation. At this time, we'd like to open for public comments on item 6.3. If any members of the public in the audience that would like to make a public comment, please come forward. Seeing none, Ms. Santana?
Mayor Pro Tem, no emails were submitted for this item. And if any member of the public joining this teleconference would like to comment on item 6.3, please click the raised hand icon in the GoToWebinar program. No hands. Mayor Pro Tem.
Seeing none, we'll go and close public comments. And any questions from the council, any comments? Councilmember Lyons?
Thank you. I have one. So did you say that you were allowing for a 3% increase?
Correct.
Is that the highest we can go?
Correct. That's capped at 3%.
It's capped at 3% every year?
Correct.
Why did we cap it at 3%?
When we were doing this process, if you remember last fiscal year, we were basically mimicking or repeating whatever we did in 2019, so that we are not making a lot of alteration to the proposed ballot that was in front of the residents or property owners. And in 2019, the idea was that we wanted to control it so that people can predict, because these communities mostly, it had a large portion condominiums and people that have some kind of on fixed income, and we wanted them to be able to predict how much the cost is going to be year over year. And because historically inflation has been less than 3%, and that's the number that was proposed by our consultant and the number that we took in 2019, and we transferred that to last year's process.
So would it have been possible to do this with just the increase would be with whatever CPI was?
That's what we did for District 39.
Okay. All right. I was just curious about that.
And different situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tai, have any questions? Mayor Lowe on the phone, do you have any questions or comment?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I can have a motion to adopt resolution number 2022-27.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councilmember Lyons. Do I have a second? I'll second.
I'll second that.
Okay, Mayor Lowe, a second. Can you take the roll, please, Mrs.
Yeah, sure.
Councilmember Liu recused himself and left the room. Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chow?
Yes.
Mayor Lowe?
Yes.
Thank you. So item 6.3B, adopt resolution number 2022-27, pass 5-0. Thank you, council. 4-0, sorry. Councilmember Liu recusing himself. Thank you. Can someone please get Councilmember Liu? Welcome back. Well, I was just going to stare at you until you sit down. Great, thank you. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 7, council consideration 7.1, ordinance number 2 regarding electronic filing. Mr. Fox.
I'm going to ask our city clerk, Christina Santana, to make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Your approval on item 7.1 is requested tonight to move the city forward toward electronic filing of Fair Political Practices Commission forms, such as campaign reports and statements of economic interest. Campaign reports are filed semi-annually by council members and organizations that have open 410 committees. Campaign reports for council members are maintained permanently by the city. Statement of economic interest forms are filed annually and at the time of assuming and leaving office by council members, commissioners, staff, and consultants. These forms are retained for 4 years for public officials and 7 years for staff. Electronic access to these records within 72 hours of the deadline date is required by Assembly Bill 2151, effective January 1st, 2021. The City of Diamond Bar has been meeting this mandate by manually scanning, redacting, and uploading hard copy forms onto our website for public viewing. The move toward electronic filing will not only provide immediate online access to the public, but will also automate the filing process, saving the filer considerable time and effort, and will also automate the city clerk's office noticing, enforcement, and FPPC forms records management duties. Government Code 84615 requires the local government agencies to adopt this ordinance before they can commence with electronic filing. The recommendation tonight is to introduce first reading by title only, waive full reading of ordinance number 02-2022 entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Diamond Bar, California, adding chapter 2.06 to title 2 of the Diamond Bar Municipal Code regarding electronic filing of campaign disclosure statements and statements of economic interest, and schedule the second reading and adoption at the next regularly scheduled city council meeting. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm open to any questions.
Any questions from my council members? Councilmember Lou?
I don't have any questions. Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
It's automating. It's a good thing.
Thank you. Mayor Lowe on the phone. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, but I'll make a motion to approve because I think it's a great thing. It's moving us up into the digital age and it'll save everyone work and it's furthers our values of transparency. So I make the motion.
Second that.
Thank you. And my apology, am I supposed to take public comments on this?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot that
And I
part.
should
So,
say that there was no emails received, and I don't see any members of the public in the room. And if any members joining this teleconference would like to comment on item 7.1, please click on the raised hand icon in your GoToWebinar program. And there are no hands raised, Mayor Pro Tem.
okay, thank you. So seeing none, we'll close public comments. And I already had a motion by, was it Mayor Lowe? And then second by
Yes.
Councilmember Tai. Ms. Santana, if we can take roll, please.
Councilmember Lou?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chow?
Yes.
Mayor Lowe?
Yes.
Thank you. So agenda 7.1 passed 5-0. So with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, council subcommittee reports and meeting attendance reports and council member comments. We'll start with Councilmember Lou.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I thank the staff presentation today. Really appreciate your thoughtful and proactiveness and in planning for the upcoming year. Like to thank Parks and Rec for setting up the high school ice cream social this coming next 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to that. And Memorial Day weekend is upon us pretty soon. I'd like to wish everyone is safe and a fun Memorial Day weekend. And I'd like to ask that we adjourn this meeting in the memories of Sergeant Christopher Brack.
Thank you. Councilmember Tai?
Thank you. Over the weekend, I had the opportunity to participate in the California Contract Cities Association Annual Municipal Seminar. 65 years they've been looking out for contract cities, and it was wonderful to be a part of that. Supervisor Hahn and Barger were there, as well as Sheriff Villanueva, to give their input and talk to their constituents. It was an outstanding keynote speech, the beginning from Brendan McDonough, who was, if you recall, I think it was 8 years ago, the 19 firefighters that were lost in Arizona. He survived that. He was a lookout, and he survived that. And the book that he has written is called My Lost Brothers, and they made a movie out of that called Only the Brave. And you could have heard a pin drop in that room when he was talking about what he's been through and how he hopes to remember those that he lost. Very excited to have heard our city manager say that our next meeting is scheduled. I'm saying scheduled. Things changed, to be held in the AQMD. And remember, some time ago, I asked, and I think other people offered different ideas, what exactly is getting back to normal? I said kids playing in the park, playing softball, playing soccer. It's the city council at the AQMD building, so we're looking forward to that. And finally, I would say that, 5.4 on our consent calendar was Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month proclamation. And I think tonight of the Irvine Taiwanese Presbyterian Church in Laguna Woods that was attacked over the weekend. And John Chang, a doctor at 52 years old, sacrificed his life and as a result prevented further carnage. So I would ask that in addition to Sergeant Brax, that we adjourn in Dr. Chang's honor and memory. Thank you. Good night. God bless you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lyons?
Thank you. And I would also like to thank staff for the well-presented budget and their ability to answer so many questions on so many different items. It was great. And I want to thank Mayor Lowe for reinstituting the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. It was a terrific morning with a lot of inspiration. And aside from the inspiration, it was really nice to reconnect with people that we haven't seen in a couple of years. Congratulations to all of our Diamond Bar Middle School, high school, and college graduates. Enjoy the festivities, and those at the high schools will certainly enjoy ice cream on us, so that's cool. And then finally, it seems that we had another Diamond Bar senior who was scammed out of a substantial amount of money. And I think everybody in this room knows that story that, we're familiar with this by now. The scamster makes either a phone call or an email to a victim and says, there's a problem with your computer, your credit card, or whatever. It goes on. And in this case, the next thing you know, the resident scammed out of $40,000. It's really a tragedy. It's basically seniors that this happens to and a lot of, lower income people. So please, if you get a call like this, call your bank, call the sheriff's station, ask them if it sounds legitimate. And further, I had talked to Captain Towsey about this at our last meeting, and I asked him if it'd be possible for Deputy Aaron Scheller to go speak to each senior club and talk about scams like this and then answer questions. And Captain Towsey said they would love to go to the senior clubs. So if we could get, if Mr. Fox, if you think it's a good idea, if we could get Clarice to maybe work with the different senior clubs to see if they're interested. I just seems like it comes up every couple months, and those are just the ones we know about. So I'm sure there's a lot more than that. So we have a great Deputy Scheller. We should put him to work. And with that, I'll say good night.
Thank you. Mayor Lowe?
Mayor, you-
Thank our staff for just, am I broadcasting?
We're on.
Okay, fantastic. I just want to thank our staff, like my council member colleagues, for their hard work and the excellent preparation of the annual budget. It's really exciting that all the activities that our community has enjoyed over the years is slowly coming back, and that further, we've got some new activities. So it's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to turning around and getting away from the COVID and reinstituting our community life together. So thank you, staff, for your good work with the budget and just for all the creative work with bringing the city back together again. I want to give a shout out to the graduates who are going to receive their diplomas and move on to their next chapter of their lives. And congratulations for your hard work and good luck and best wishes with the next step. And finally, I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem for running the meeting for me today. Great job. And thank you very much. And I will see you next month at the QMD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We hope you enjoy the rest of your time there. Also want to thank staff. Thank you. I also want to thank staff for a wonderful presentation today. It was a pretty packed agenda, but we got it through. It's not even 8 o'clock yet, so I'm pretty impressed with myself. But thanks, staff. Thanks, Councilmember Tai, for bringing up Dr. Chang Irvine. Our heart certainly goes out to him and his family. And, because of his selfless act of bravery, he's helped save many, many more lives. I think there were 40 people in the room. So we certainly mourn the loss of his life and also those that were lost just this week in both Buffalo and Houston. Our hearts really go out to everyone that has suffered a loss this week. If I can have Captain Towsey, if you don't mind coming up, just say a few quick words about he says watch commander, right? But it's actually Sergeant Brax. I know there's a fundraiser. You want to share a little bit about his life so we can remember him?
Sure. Sergeant Christopher Brax, he was on a police unity tour. So every year we mourn the loss of our fallen brothers and sisters at the National Law Enforcement Memorial in Washington, D.C. The police unity tour is a bike ride. Police officers from across the nation join together and they ride from, I believe they started point is New Jersey. It's a 4-day bicycle ride from New Jersey to Washington, D.C., where they then honor the fallen officers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on the second day of his ride. He suffered, while riding, a heart attack and collapsed on his bike. He was taken to the hospital and never regained consciousness and passed away on the 10th of this month, so just last week. His wife this was her first year. She's also a member of our department. She's a custody assistant at Twin Towers. She was also on the ride with him and was actually riding behind him.
Oh.
And was with him at the hospital when he passed away. He's been with us since September. Prior to coming to us, he just promoted us. He didn't just promote, but he came to us as a sergeant. So as a sergeant, you normally work as a patrol sergeant or as watch commander at the station. So if you call the station and you want to commend or complain against a deputy, you would be talking to the watch commander who's running the shift. So the last 2 months he's been on PM shift, working as watch commander at our station. And before that, he was a field sergeant on early morning shift. He served in the military. He was a Marine. He served for 8 years. I believe he did 2 tours.
Wow.
And he was 44 years old when he passed away.
Wow.
So it's very unfortunate. We just last Friday, our station was honored to be able to go onto the LAX tarmac and receive Chris on the American Airlines flight. He received a full procession with deputies from our station, and CHP shut down the freeway. And we were able to escort him to Rose Hills in Whittier. And we're pending his funeral at the beginning of the month. I believe it's June 2nd. So everyone here at Walnut Diamond Bar Station misses him. It's a void. We'll always remember him. And just please, if you need to make up with anybody or tell anybody you love them, don't wait. He's gone.
You want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah. So earlier today, we have bracelets. We're selling them. Actually, not really selling them. It's a donation if you want to give to his family. It's just a tan and green wristband with his name, his badge number, and his end of watch. We're also having a memorial run. We do it every year, but this time we're going to dedicate it to Chris Brax since he just passed away. But it's a memorial run. It's a torch run to honor all the fallen officers throughout the year. It's going to start at Fairplex in Valley. It's going to run from there to our station, and then from our station till Valley and Nogales. The second half from the station to Valley and Nogales is going to be run in honor of Chris Brax, and that's going to be this Friday at we'll probably be at the station at about 4:30. So if anyone's interested, they can come. We bike ride, skateboard, scooter, any way you want to do it. PM. So we normally have a good showing from our station, but any way you want to do it, if you want to run, it's 4 miles. If you want to run the whole thing, it's 8.5 miles from Fairplex all the way to Nogales. But the second half from the station, and then we're going to have, thankfully, I believe it's Roland School District is going to supply us with a bus to get everyone back to the station. So if anyone's interested, Friday, 4:30 at our station, Walnut Diamond Bar Station, we're going to run in honor of Chris Brax.
Thank you, Captain. Please extend our deepest condolences to him and to his family. It's a big loss to his station, to our community. So
yeah, thank you. It was an on-duty event, so it is going to be on duty. He'll be honored at our station he'll be up on our memorial wall.
Yeah, please let us know when that happens. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So for today, I would like to adjourn the meeting in memory of Sergeant Chris Brax, and the time is now 7:56, and we will adjourn, and please indulge me again. Thank you.